Toby, it's so good to have you here today.
Great to be here.
We want to do a little bit of talking about the bylaw, proposed bylaw revisions. And this is something that we've been talking about for a little while now because there's a challenge in the way that our current bylaws are written that we kind of need to bring into compliance. So can you share a little bit about your understanding of what the challenge was and how we're tackling it?
Absolutely. How I understand it, the CRA is set up to help protect charities and especially nonprofits, and churches are charities as well. And part of that protection is to make sure that we don't have, or no charity has one person that has way too much power, in the sense that no one person is a director, an employee, and an officer of that organization. And the whole idea is just to help the charity run a lot better, smoother overall. And so the church finds ourselves in a place where we have had, in our constitution, the pastor is both an officer, an employee, and also a director. And so because of changes that the CRA has proposed to charities and nonprofits, we also now have to consider making these changes. And so that's really how we even came about talking about these changes and came about working through some of these changes. And I'm happy to go into more detail, but I'll stop for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Toby. That's a great introduction to the challenge that we're trying to tackle. So right now we have the pastor playing three roles. And we still want the pastor to be involved. Obviously, this is critically important in our organizational structure. So I think where we've interviewed some pastors and other board members and looked at different ways to tackle this. And I think where we landed was we were going to look at the pastor remaining an officer and an employee, but no longer being a director. So could you talk a little bit about the role of the pastor as an officer?
The pastor will be involved for administration of the church, will also be involved in board meetings, but in particular, annual general meetings and special meetings, the pastor would chair those meetings because those involve all the congregation. And so that's where we more or less got to.
Fantastic. So then this also requires a tweaking at the board level because the pastor wouldn't be chairing the board meetings that happen monthly. But so we're going to look at an alternate, having a chair of the board. Do you want to talk a little bit about the chair of the board and what they would take on as responsibilities?
That's right. So the chair of the board will be responsible for running the board meetings, so scheduling the board meeting, making sure that they happen on a regular schedule, the agenda of the meeting, working very closely with the pastor to make sure that all the matters that need to be addressed are addressed in these meetings. The chair would also be responsible for making sure that the meetings run the way they should, and collaborating very, very closely with the pastor. However, the board meetings would be the chair's responsibility. But then, like we just said, things like special meetings, annual general meetings would still be the pastor's responsibility.
Yeah, so it's sort of a working together in terms of the process, but keeping, again, the lines of sort of responsibility clear so that we're in compliance with charitable law, and also we can function as we need to as a church. So there also were some other tweaks in the bylaws that we had to make to sort of help facilitate the chair position and just sort of the overall composition of the board. Do you want to talk about the term of current board members versus what we're proposing as a change?
With this new change, with needing a chair of a board, we have to look at continuity. So right now we have 2 terms of 2 years for board members. And so if you're looking at potentially someone being a chair, by the time someone is up to speed, trained to be a chair, it might be time for them to move on. And now for continuity, we thought it was best for us to consider adding a third 2-year term so that in the first 2 years, really, we also made some changes to the chair position itself, tried to strengthen the wording that we currently had in the Constitution so that a chair could become a chair in their second term, and then they could hopefully have about that amount of time, 2 years, to settle in. And if all goes well, which hopefully things do go well, then they have an extra 2 years. That would help with some continuity across, and just making sure that we don't have a lot of turnover and more uncertainty.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, especially as we prepare for sort of the long-term future of Stone Church. It's great to have that continuity on the board. Just to reiterate, we are looking at trying to bring our bylaws into compliance with what's acceptable for not-for-profit and charitable organizations. That we not have one individual that is a director, an officer, and an employee of the organization. So the proposal is that the pastor would remain an officer and an employee that would be responsible for the day-to-day operations and spiritual guidance of the church, and also chair the congregational meetings, the special meetings and the annual general meeting, but that the chair, a chair position on the board, would be the person that chairs the board meetings and the meeting of the board that happens on a regular basis. And that for that reason, and to create some more continuity, that we actually allow for there to be one more term of service, a third 2-year term for board members that are, again, they have to be voted in by the congregation, but this allows for some continuity. So thank you so much, Toby, for breaking down all those major changes that I just recapped. However, I'm wondering if you want to talk a little bit about some of the housekeeping items, some of those minor things that we updated in terms of language and different things in the bylaws. The
minor changes really were around changing some organizational references and names of organizations that we're affiliated with. Some of them were just really a few things to clean up in terms of overall wording to make some parts of it modern. Honestly, it's all available for you to take a look. Please do take a look. It's not significant changes, and a lot of the work was not to overhaul the Constitution, but it was to make sure that we were set up to be in a good place from a CRA and a regulatory perspective.
Yeah, I think that it's important that people realize that we didn't set out to make our bylaws perfect or to do a whole overhaul of the bylaws, but we were really after a particular issue, which was to bring us into compliance. And I think that as we did that, as we made those changes in terms of what the pastor's role would be as an officer and a employee, and we created sort of a more fuller understanding of what the chair role would be, that we saw some other little things that needed to be updated. Some references to organizations that they've changed their names, so we changed them in our Constitution, but nothing that would change the original sort of intention or approach that the bylaws were meant to tackle. Anything else that you would like to mention, Toby, about the functioning of the bylaw revision committee and how this all came together?
So in summary, just like Pastor Godfrey said, we looked at the Constitution review with one purpose, to bring us to compliance with the CRA. And along the way, we looked at what various churches had done in the past. So we spoke to other pastors that had different configurations of what this looked like. We spoke to other board members and even one of the chairs of the board. We looked at other constitutions to get an idea of what other people have done. And then we took that to look at it in our context at Stone and came up with these recommendations. And more than happy to have, if you've got any questions, more than happy to have members of the Constitution Review Committee address those. We'll be available during the AGM as well to answer whatever questions might come up, either there or before.
So I want to thank you so much, Toby, for your help on this, and you served alongside with Gail Meets and Alana Petter and myself taking a look at these bylaws on this bylaw revision committee, and really appreciate sort of your insights and your help in this. And thanks for doing this video. Hopefully we've been able to explain a little bit more and clearly why we took a look at this and what some of the major changes would be that have been proposed for these bylaw revisions.